So Devin Booker is now considered to be one of the more underrated players in the NBA. And not only that, he became the star player that no one gives a damn. Why that? How did it come to this conclusion? What is up, YouTube? A man, say man. This is your main man, A man, back at again for more bangers. So, the Phoenix Suns have been in basketball purgatory after the 2022 season, where they had the best record in the league, winning 64 games, but utterly got embarrassed by the Dallas Mavericks in the second round, specifically by Luka Doncic in Game 7. Since then, the Suns have been pretty much in no man's land, even with the acquisition of Kevin Durant to pair alongside BD Book and CP3. They simply don't have the depth to make a run and compete against Denver. And after that season, the new owner Matt Isbia decided to make a stupid trade by bringing in Bradley Beal and getting rid of a real point guard in CP3. I knew that the Suns were going to be in purgatory in 2024, where they still don't have depth on the roster. They had no defense, plus they don't have a point guard, and Devin Booker have to be the guy that has to be the main facilitator, and it was just a mess as far as fit. Luckily, they made it to the playoffs as a sixth seed before getting swept by the Minnesota Timberwolves. This was the last year where Devin Booker was relevant, because since then, the Suns didn't make the playoffs in 2025, and in last year got swept by the Thunder despite him putting up all-star numbers during that time while dealing with injuries. Not many people now are really mentioning Devin Booker as one of the better players in the league, and he's becoming more and more irrelevant. Therefore, nobody cares about Devin Booker like that no more. That's the topic of this video. Before I continue, y'all, make sure y'all subscribe for more NBA content and turn on post notifications so you don't miss anything new on this channel. And that out of the way, stay tuned and enjoy the video. Now, Devin Booker before the 21 season was emerging as one of the better scorers in the NBA from 2015 to 2020, where he averaged 23 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists on 46, 35, and 87 splits. And during that time, the Suns were, and still to this day, one of the worst and more dysfunctional franchises in the NBA. And during that 5-year stretch, they only had one season where they won 30 or more games. That is pathetic. Despite Devin Booker putting up all of these numbers, it never really contributed to wins. The reason being because outside of his scoring, what can he really do at an elite level? I mean, he's a really good mid-range shooter and a shot creator from behind the arc, but he's not elite at any of them, especially as a playmaker and most especially as a defender. And that's why people during that time, even me, and still to this day, don't take Devin Booker that seriously, because he doesn't impact the game compared to other stars despite him having terrible rosters. A look at a prime Westbrook. Without KD in 2017, he had an MVP year in which was fraudulent, to be honest. Still able to make it as a 6th seed in the Western Conference despite having a subpar roster. I even look at a prime Harden in the same year. Had a pretty lackluster roster as far as talent goes, and still made it as a 3rd seed in the Western Conference. Hell, I even look at a Kobe in 06, where he had a historic year with one of the worst rosters I have ever seen, took them to the 6th seed, and had a 3-1 lead against Phoenix that year. KD in 2014, after Westbrook went down with injuries, even when Westbrook came back in the second half of the season, KD carried his team to a near 60-win team while winning MVP. Of course, LeBron as a given, Giannis in 2017, and in 18, I even add in a Jaylen Brown last year, Nikola Jokic, and the list goes on and on. The point is that Devin Booker was really irrelevant despite him putting up numbers during that time, because he couldn't elevate bad rosters like other stars can. It wasn't until the Suns made a blockbuster move to trade for CP3 and all the draft picks they've selected in the 2018 draft, such as DeAndre Ayton, and then trading for Mikal Bridges in the same draft, and then drafting Cam Johnson in 2019, have all developed into very key contributors in that 21 season. This was the year that D-Book was more relevant than ever before, especially reaching the NBA Finals for the first time in the playoffs. He was putting himself in the conversation among the top 10 players in the NBA, especially how much he has improved as a playmaker and a defender, and the numbers that he continued to put up, being an efficient 25 point per game scorer. Now people are actually giving him the respect that he deserves. During that time, the dude honestly was the most disrespected player in the NBA. He didn't get any MVP votes. Instead, that went to his teammate in CP3, who went 5th in MVP voting because of the turnaround they had that year, in which, don't get me wrong, CP3 was Chris Paul, one of the most impactful point guards in NBA history during that time, where he still have something left in the tank. But Booker was still giving you 25 per game on solid shooting splits, while improved on his playmaking and defense, and still didn't even get any MVP votes, nor made an All-NBA team. Hell, despite leading the Suns to one of the best records in the NBA, Booker was initially snubbed from the All-Star team before he was named an injury replacement. But all of that will change during the playoffs, where in his playoff debut, Booker put on a masterclass, capping off a first-round elimination of the defending champion Lakers with a 47-11 rebound game. And then in the finals, Booker dropped 42 points in Game 4 and 40 in Game 5 against the Milwaukee Bucks. Overall, Booker put up 27, 6, and 5 assists on 45% from the field, 32% from 3, and 91% from the free throw line. Like I said, this is the peak of Booker's career, and it continues to get better for this dude, as the Suns will have the best record in the NBA. The following year, Booker will put up 27, 5, and 5 while shooting damn near 50, 40, 90 splits. This is by far his best year of his career. He will not only make his first legit All-Star appearance, but he will make first team All-NBA and finish 4th in MVP voting. And the Suns was looked upon as a team to beat in the Western Conference alongside Golden State. Just before D-Book reached his peak of his career, only to come crashing down the very next year, where the Dallas Mavericks, specifically Luka Doncic, humble him and his team to the core, to the point where they can't come back from this. It also proved why Devin Booker may not be the player that we thought he was, because in 21, him and his team had the benefit of playing teams like the Lakers, who were severely injured all year, a Nuggets team that didn't have a Jamal Murray, and by the way, this is playoff dashy stuffer Murray I'm talking about, not the choker version today, and faced a Clippers team without Kawhi. Once he faced against a team like Milwaukee in the NBA Finals, who were healthy, they got humbled despite being up 2-0 in the series. And hell, the following year, the Pelicans took this Suns team to 6 games without Zion, and Booker in the playoffs that year not only got outplayed by Luka, but he was getting outplayed by Brandon Ingram, who is now a tradable asset for teams to use to build championship level teams. And then from 23 to now, Booker has struggled to make it out of the second round, and he's pretty much back to the same spot that he was from the beginning of his career. Mind you that the Suns, Matt Ispia specifically, gave this man a 4-year, $224 million supermax extension in 2022, along with a 2-year, $145 million max extension he signed 2 years ago. He has 4 years left of his deal, worth $260 million, including in his last year of his contract, where he will make $76 million. Oh my God. I see why no one cares for Devin Booker like that no more, especially for teams trying to trade for a second option on a title contender. Like, I see why. Now, don't get me wrong, Booker is still an all-star level player, but as we saw during both the early 2015 to 2020 stretch and from the 23 season, he cannot elevate a flawed roster on his own. When you pay a primary scorer like a top 3 player in the league, you leave yourself with zero margin for error. Yet he doesn't bring the MVP level single-handed game control that justifies that price tag. And don't even mention his playoff stains, where in elimination games, Booker is 0-5. Yes, 0-5. Aside from one stellar performance in 24, his closeout tape is filled with total disappearing acts and blowout losses. The games against Dallas in 22 and in 23 against Denver are legacy blemishes, point blank. In back-to-back postseasons, Phoenix was eliminated on their home floor in embarrassing blowouts where Booker scored a combined 23 points on 7 of 27 shooting. When opposing defenses trapped him and forced someone else to make plays, he completely folded under the pressure. Across his regular season postseason games, Booker averages roughly 28 points per game on near 48% shooting. But in elimination scenarios, that drops down to 23 points per game on 42% from the field and roughly 21% from deep. When the national media talk about stars who don't impact winning or lack thereof, the ultimate extra gear when the season is on the line, Booker's elimination game resume is Exhibit A. And with this contract that he has right now, there's no wonder why no one really cares about Devin Booker, because he's not good enough for teams to gut their entire roster for him. And then add in his playoff history, specifically in elimination games, no team is willing to trade for a guy who is a first or second option on a championship roster who's this bad in elimination games. You just can't do that, man. Especially for a guy who's getting paid this much and you're guaranteed to be in the second apron, especially in the last 2 years of his deal. This is by far one of the worst contracts in the NBA. Now, when you look at this roster, man, I'm not gonna lie, this is still a jumbled up, mediocre roster. I mean, they traded for an inconsistent shooting finisher forward and Miles Bridges. Like, what difference does that make? You still have Dillon Brooks, in which I see him getting traded later on next season because what he did in the playoffs last year, and if he continues to do what he did in the playoffs in the regular season, then he's gonna demand top dollar because the Suns plan on giving him an extension worth 30 to 40 million per year. And with Booker's contract, they're gonna end up in the second apron because now you have potentially 3 players making 30 plus million per year, and it just doesn't make sense for them long term to keep Brooks, especially at 32 years old, where he can be better utilized on a contender. You still have Jalen Green, who's an inefficient shot chucker, and a bunch of young guys with less upside. This Suns team has no clear direction whatsoever, and I get why they made these moves to stay competitive, but they're only going to be in purgatory at best, a playing team, because of D Book's contract. And this is the consequences of the boneheaded moves that the Suns ownership has made with the Bradley Beal trade, the KD trade, where they traded a shitload of draft picks and giving Devin Booker the supermax money, even though he's not a superstar. With all that said, I believe that the situation that Devin Booker is in right now, where no one wants to trade for him because of his contract and playoff history and wasting his entire prime on a team that is dysfunctional and in no man's land with virtually no draft picks, it's safe to say that Devin Booker over time will become more and more irrelevant, and that's just rather sad. So that's the end of the video. Let me know in the comment section below on D-Book. Should they accept mediocrity with Devin Booker on the roster or trade him to rebuild? Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more NBA content and turn on post notifications. And smash the like button if you enjoyed this video. And that's all. This is your boy A-Man. Stay litty and signing out.